The Princess Yacht fleet has been in a state of flux of late. It's a very exciting time for Princess. We've seen the addition of the X-Class right at the very pinnacle, a kind of super yacht influenced expedition style yacht with vertical sides and clever deck layouts and huge internal volume. And at the other end of the spectrum, we've seen the R-Class yachts with their F1 technologies and their active foiling and carbon fibre construction. Well, for me and for a lot of people, Princess Yachts at its very best has always been about those kind of mid-sized flybridge cruisers. The F50 is an example of exactly that. And there it is. Now, it's interesting if you compare the F50 to the V50 next door. Now, the V50 is designed to be the sportier, sleeker, non-fly variant. The F50 is 26 centimetres wider in the beam and 7 tonnes heavier. That's about 45% heavier than the V50. But to look at it, it really doesn't look as though it carries that extra bulk, that extra beam or that extra weight. It's a good size of boat, but it's very nicely proportioned. What we have here on the side, incidentally, because this is a 2020 model, is we have those separate windows for the fore and aft cabins. On more recent models, the 2022 model, those windows have been joined, as you can see on the V50. That fiberglass kind of bar across the saloon window, that's also gone. That's a one-piece glass now, more stylish than it was in the past. That aside, this is pretty much the boat you will see if you buy a 2022 version of the Princess F50. Now let's step on board and take a closer look. As you would expect, the first thing you find is a lovely big high-low platform. The layout here is set. There are no options for this. So your tender garage here is central and you have walkways on either side of equal width. There's a nice cosy little dining station here in the cockpit. And you could easily put a couple of chairs or stools on this side of the table just to create extra space, so you can seat perhaps 8 or 9 people. And under here we have access to the engine bay. I wouldn't normally start a walk around tour with the engine bay, but this is something else. Let's take a look at this. Now, as we come down here, you'll see that the IPS 800s sit forward, separated with jack shafts to the pod drives aft. Now, in addition to looking very tidy, this setup shifts a lot of the weight forward, which is very important for seakeeping and for handling. It's great to see. Elsewhere in here, we've got the generator to port, battery boxes just behind that. Everything's beautifully insulated, you have to say. There's loads of space. And there's the air conditioning units to starboard. We also have, on this boat, very high spec boat, a gyro. It really is very nicely organised, very high quality. Everything's beautifully routed. And despite the fact that it's so high spec and full of optional extras, there's still acres of room in here. Let's get ourselves back out. Okay, we're not allowed out onto the bow today, so we'll pop into the saloon. Now again, this is a fixed layout with a couple of minor options that you'll see on this boat. Here are these central bars that no longer exist on the 2022 model. So basically what we have is a galley aft layout, and on flybridge cruisers that's actually very popular because of course it enables you to ferry your food directly up to the flybridge without having to negotiate awkward corners and steps. And here on this particular model we have a huge, almost American style fridge freezer, full height, huge capacity. You can, if you like, have a lower fridge and extend the work surface right aft here, and that of course opens up windows aft for extra visibility, and also this port window on the side goes all the way aft too. It's just a matter of which you prefer, but the quality here is every bit as good as you'd expect. We have a dishwasher down at the base here, locked in with a neat little device to stop it coming loose, a microwave, a 4-ring hob top, looks like induction, and a neat little bin popping out. I quite like the idea that you've got the sink cover is a chopping board. It's a nice touch. I should mention actually before we go too much further forward that on this particular model we've got a joystick on the port side and in the cockpit, and that's matched with a letterbox passerelle that pops out from there to give you a bridge. Essentially it's the kind of options you want when you're boating in the Med and you frequently moor stern to. Makes it much easier. Very simple. Now there we go. What do we have here? An extra fridge by the looks of it. Fusion sound system. Got another fridge. Perhaps that is an ice maker or a freezer down in there. Move over to the side. We've got, that's nice, little glass holders, bottle holders. It's all very neatly arranged, and of course air conditioning for days like today. Now, there's a couple of steps up to the main lounge area of the saloon. And what I particularly like about this, though there's plenty to like about it, what I really like about it is the fact that if you perch yourself at the helm seat and take a look around, it's tremendously sociable. There's an additional co-pilot seat next to you, but you're directly opposite the primary lounge, which is lovely. That primary lounge looks across to a second settee to starboard, and built into the back of that we have a lifting TV. You can guarantee if I operated that TV to watch my favourite programme, my kids would choose to sit directly there in front of it, but that's neither here nor there. What is particularly pertinent on this boat is that when you're sitting in this main lounge area, it seems quite minor from the outside, that little sort of blade of fiberglass running through the window, but it actually does kind of interrupt your eye line a bit. So it's great to see that on 2022 model it's been shifted in favour of a wider view, less to obstruct your view of the sea. Now up here, back at the helm, we have the standard joystick control you'd expect from the IPS 800s. We also have, this is lovely, when you turn the wheel, the central hub remains exactly in the middle. That's classy. We've also got plenty of space beneath a nice shading brow for two huge MFDs. bow thruster just here, and we've got some lovely little rubber surfaces for you to store your bits and bobs without them sliding off, and a couple of even more wonderful vents that are shooting ice cold air straight at my head, which is lovely. A couple of USB points and nice stainless steel cup holders. It's a classy spot. It's very, very comfortable. You don't of course have the overhead sunroof and skylights and so on, because of course you have a flybridge up top, and this is a serious flybridge boat. We're not talking about some kind of reinterpretation of low-slung sport bridge style cruisers where you keep the profile of the thing as low as possible to keep it looking sporty. This is a serious traditional take on what a flybridge cruiser ought to be, and you'll see how much benefit you derive from that when you pop up top in a minute. But first, let's pop down below. Again, the layout is fixed. On the way down the stairs, of course, we have this breaker panel, all our various switches, both for shore power and for everything else. Now, from this central atrium, which is quite nicely lit because it remains open to the upper saloon, we have the forward cabin with scissor berths. Now, it's quite cool because whether you choose to operate them as a double or two singles, you retain huge amounts of storage under here. They filled that one with cushions. I dare say they've done the same here. No, not too bad. They're very deep, very long, very useful for cruisers. There's also some proper hanging space to starboard. There's the Fusion stereo just there, and a television mounted into the wall very neatly. And over here, what we have is a neat little space for you to get yourself sorted in the morning. Nice wide full length hull windows with little opening portholes, which is great for a bit of fresh air, and a hatch up the front that you can cover over. Now, if we move to starboard, the bunk cabin is a nice example of its type, actually. Goodness me, it's extraordinarily deep set. There's some good storage there. What really impresses is the headroom in here. It must be at its highest, I would say, at least 7'3", 7'4". Certainly enough for a man of my size to stroll around in comfort. And more very good hanging storage there. And these beds are a good size too, I have to say. It's not just for kids. You could comfortably sleep adult friends in here for weekends away. Again, good views. Now the day heads to port up a small step. We have a separate shower there, quite nice and large. Again, the headroom is very good. A small bit of window with an opening part to get a bit of steam. No overhead light, but it's a bright and large and well proportioned space. And further aft, of course, we have the full beam master cabin. Now this is where the really deep part of the window drops down, so you get fantastic light, fantastic views out of here. Now on the starboard side, Again, we have a lovely little dressing table that could also very happily double as a desk if you wanted to sit there and tap away at your computer for a bit. Lots of storage. Again, everything matches up very, very nicely. On the port side, we have a really good size of settee. You can't quite see it because we're jammed up against Princess V55, I think it is, but excellent views out of there too, and it's a good height here for changing, and a nice flush mount TV there too, plus of course more storage than you're going to need. Now, as we make our way back through the saloon, it's worth noting, just in case you didn't know, that Princess Yachts actually mocks up a true-to-scale model built out of plywood of every new model it generates, such that you can have a walkthrough exactly like this and ensure that all the parameters, all the volumes, all the layouts and configurations work just right. And when you make your way through a Princess yacht, you can really feel that. So let's make our way up onto the flybridge. There are plenty of well-placed grab handles. Now up on the fly, have a large fold-out table, beautiful heavyweight wood, and wrap-around seating at the aft end. I would think for at least 5 or 6 people, plus of course a nice little wet bar to port with a sink with folding tap and a nice barbecue. So you don't necessarily have to head downstairs to grab your food. Underneath the bin, and as you can see, a little bit more storage. And as we make our way forward to the front of this flybridge space, get my book out of the way, you can see that just as down below on the main deck, we have a tremendously sociable helm. A full helm station with everything you need, plus a co-pilot seat to starboard, and then directly to port of you, a lovely big lounge. You can get a little infill to fit in here to turn it into a even bigger lounging station, but it means you're not divorced from the party if you happen to be the driver for the day. You can see the parameters of the boat very easily all round from up here. And what's also very nice is the fact that you don't have to pop down to get yourself a cold drink either. There's a nice deep bucket fridge right here, so you can just reach in, grab yourself a bottle of wine, a couple of beers, and it's right next to the helm, right next to the lounge station, right next to the wet bar, exactly where you'd want it. Now, what's particularly interesting about the Princess F50 is the fact that despite offering all the things that we've just been around the boat and looked at, despite offering 3 decks, a really good full-size flybridge, despite all of that, despite being 26 centimetres wider than a V50 and about 7 tonnes, about 45% heavier, it's actually a pretty good performance boat. Equipped with these IPS 800s, about 1200 horsepower in all, we're looking at a top end of about 34 knots and a range in the region of 250 nautical miles. And the price for the base package goes from around £1,056,000, including VAT, on the water. Spec'd up like this, it would fetch about £1.4 million, including VAT. But you have to say, given that it offers 3 decks that operate so effectively, Given that this is such a spacious, sociable and such a well-proven boat, and given that on top of that it's actually also very stylish and a very credible performer, it's very easy to see how Princess Yachts has forged such a powerful reputation for the quality of its mid-sized flybridge cruisers.